So as a teen moves through adolescent development, what kinds of characteristics are we looking for if we were to say that this individual is a sexually healthy adolescent? With regard to self, we're looking for appreciation of body, positive body image, responsibility for one's own behaviors, and knowledge and information about sexuality issues. With regard to relationships with parents and family members, as we said, that can be strained, especially as peers become more important. But that as one moves to late adolescence, that the teen learns to communicate effectively with family about a variety of issues, including sexuality issues and sexual decision making. That teens understand and seek information from their parents. Their family values are part of how they consider developing their own set of values. That with regard to peers, they can interact with all genders in appropriate and respectful ways, and I would add to that that they can interact with individuals of different sexual orientations in appropriate and respectful ways. That they act on their own values and beliefs even when those conflict with their peers. Specific to romantic partnerships, that they're able to express love and intimacy in developmentally appropriate ways, and that they have the skills to evaluate their own readiness for mature sexual relationships. So as they start to come to this point of sexual decision making and evaluating relationships when they are or aren't ready for specific sexual behaviors, what are some ways we can communicate an ethic to adolescents? So Reverend Hafner in Beyond the Big Talk has formulated CAHUMP, which is very helpful in teen education, but I also think perhaps the most effective tool that I have been able to communicate with youth groups when I am doing workshops for them. It's based on relationship qualities and social justice. It's not based on specific acts. So this ethic is not you can engage in X behavior at Y time, but it's really what are the qualities we're looking for in a relationship to know that we're ready for particular kinds of behaviors. So relationships then would be based on shared personal values, including these 5 criteria, which when I do work with youth, I'm very clear that if you cannot name and collectively understand these 5 basic values, we are not ready then in that relationship to engage in mature sexual behaviors, which include forms of sexual intercourse, oral and anal intercourse, as well as penile-vaginal intercourse. So the first is consent. Is this relationship and are the behaviors in it consensual? Is it non-using, non-exploitative, or coercive? Are people in this for the goods of the relationship itself? Or is it, I want to date you and I will engage in these behaviors to keep you as my boyfriend or girlfriend? Am I trying to become more popular by being in a relationship with you? How is it that this really treats the other person as a person, not as a means to something else we're seeking? Is it honest? Can we communicate well enough to know what our feelings are, why we're in this relationship together, and what the individuals in the relationship mean to each other? Is it mutually pleasurable? This, I think, especially in teen relationships, potentially mitigates against issues of seeking mutual pleasure, or mitigates against things like friends with benefits, where we know from the data often young men get more pleasurable benefits than the young women engaged in those behaviors. So how is it that the relationship itself, the activities we engage in, including the sexual behaviors, are mutually pleasurable? And that lastly, it's protected. Protected against unintended pregnancies, if possible, given the behaviors, as well as sexually transmitted infections or diseases. So oftentimes when we teach CAHUMP, there's another way to talk about it, which is, can you have my pleasure, or just CUHMP. OWL, which is a curriculum, the Our Whole Lives curriculum, which you'll be learning more about in Unit 8 of this course, teaches a lesson called the third option. In this, it teaches youth that many of our reasons for having sexual intercourse, affection, intimacy, love, pleasure, fun, and relationships can often be satisfied by a third option. It doesn't have to be abstinence, nor does it have to be engaging in mature sexual behaviors involving sexual intercourse. And that, in fact, some of the strongest reasons for not having sexual intercourse, risk of pregnancy, disease, religious teachings, family values, can be avoided by having outer course. In this third option, sexual abstinence is not defined as no sexual behaviors, but it's defined as the third option, a realistic option for teens of engaging in pleasurable sexual behaviors that don't involve the same sort of risks as intercourse does. What we know about religious teens is that they're less likely to engage in risk-taking behaviors. Risk-taking behaviors such as drinking alcohol, doing drugs, but also engaging in mature sexual behaviors. On the Religious Institute website, we have a guide called Just Say No, a faith-based advocacy guide for sexuality education. There's a fact sheet there that provides you with information from Sexuality and Religion teen study done in 2000. It talks about how teens engaged in their faith communities at least 2 times a week are less likely to engage in these risk-taking behaviors, that they have a better sense of what their values are and how they apply those values to their decision-making. The Our Whole Lives curriculum is a critical part of this kind of education in our faith communities. So we invite you to visit the Religious Institute website, look at these facts and statistics. They might be helpful in communicating the need for sexuality education in your congregation, but also for understanding what makes a difference to our teens as they move through their adolescent and sexual development.